Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, to help contractors build great teams. My guest today is Patrick Lange from Business Modification Group. Now, Patrick, what is it that you do?
We are business brokers that specialize in selling in the trades primarily. We help people buy and sell trades companies.
Okay. Now, having went to the service world recently, there's a lot of, I would say, mystery and misconceptions around selling your business these days, right? So typically, I guess the somewhat fundamental question is, how does one evaluate a business and how does one make it worth more? I mean, I hear it's, either 3 to 6 times EBITDA, whatever that is. And I maybe you can tell, how do you figure out EBITDA? Because as a service contractor, you might have 4 extra cars you don't need, right? Or it's like an office in your house and a plane that you use occasionally. So how do you figure EBITDA? And then what multiple can you expect and why? That make sense?
Yeah. So that's a challenging question to answer, honestly, right? So there's a lot of different factors that go into evaluating a business, and it typically is going to be a multiple of EBITDA or net income or seller discretionary earnings. There's different factors that are used. And then there's normally a range within there. So last year we sold companies anywhere from 2 times all the way up to 10 times. And there's different factors that have an impact on that. Buyers love consistency. They love consistency in income. They love consistency in employees, consistency in customers, and they like repeat revenue. So those are factors that will help increase the value of a business. Buyers don't like jobs, right? So many people with their businesses, and this is obviously where you come in, Paul, there's a lot of people with their businesses, they do everything. If you look at a Google review, it's the owner's name. If they were the best salesman, the best technician, the best everything. And right. So one of the key ways to increase value is separating yourself from the business, hiring people, bringing people in to help deliver on that experience. And then there's other factors that go into it, taking good care of your customers, good online reputation.
Well, one way to have people figure that out is if you can't take 3 months off, you're probably integral to your business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you 3 months would be amazing for most, taking 3 days. People can't take
a
off.
month is a minimum, right? I mean, you can't at least take a month off and not have your business fall apart. You're obviously on a job and not a business, right?
Absolutely right. And that's the case. And so that's one of the first places we start. We say getting themselves out of the van, right? If they're doing all the work, then chances are they don't have a business, they have a job. And if they're okay with that, so am I. But if you're looking to maximize the value of the business, you've got to put people and systems in place.
Now, EBITDA, so why don't you explain what EBITDA is? Because maybe a lot of our listeners have heard it, but they're not exactly sure.
So it stands for earnings before income, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So they take the bottom line of the company on the tax return and they add back any interest expense, any amortization, any depreciation, any taxes they paid out. That's what gives that dollar figure. We don't use that a lot because oftentimes at that point you're playing, I hate to say it this way, you're playing into private equity's hands, right? It should be a fairly easy thing to calculate, but somehow it moves around a lot. And many buyers, professional buyers out there, will make an offer, and instead of the offer being a specific price, they're going to say 4 times that or 5 times that.
Well, now let's say I have an air conditioning company, whatever. Okay. Now I have 3 cars. I have a truck that tow my boat. I have a motorhome, and I have a new SUV, right? They're all business expenses because I sort of use them all in my business, right? And I have an office in my house. I have somebody there once a week, but I have my house pay me $2,000 a month in rent. I've got a guest house wherever, and I bring clients there occasionally, right? So I have this other house that I use, and this is really technically between the IRA. I mean, there's all shades of gray in there, right, Patrick? I mean, there's no clear line, but most entrepreneurs take every legal tax advantage they can, right? So they write off a bunch of stuff and they buy it because they can write it off. But the truth is it's actually income. Does that figure in or out? How do you do that?
Yeah, we use a line called add backs. And so here's the reality is you can't get paid for what you can't prove, right? So if it's such a gray area that we can't prove that it's a personal expense or a business, then often you can't get paid for it. If it's my wife's Porsche payment, my wife doesn't have a Porsche, I'm just using that as an example. Obviously,
Right.
that's not needed in the business. If I'm running a roofing company, we don't need a Porsche. And so it's easy to be able to add that kind of stuff back in. Where it becomes real gray and real hard for people is their lawn care, who also takes care of their office and their house, and their Home Depot bills that they use for doing things around the house and the office. And so those kind of expenses are substantially harder for us to be able to prove and add back. And as a result, it's harder to get paid for.
Right. So, is there any rule of how, let's say I'm going to sell my business in 2 or 3 years, any rule of how I can clarify my add backs so I can add them back?
So my preferences don't have them, right? If I can
Okay,
hand a
come
buyer,
on, come on.
if but here's the math behind it, Paul, and this is where people I think overlook it. Let's say that you recharacterize $100,000 of income, right? You classify it as expenses. It's paying for your ex-girlfriend's condo or whatever it is.
Right,
You're in the top tax bracket. You're saving $37,000, right? On that hundred
right,
thousand dollars of income,
right.
top tax bracket. That's what you're saving. Well, if you pay taxes on that, and we're able to easily prove that as income, and we can sell your business for a 5-time multiple, you're going to get paid $500,000 on that. So you're being creative with your accounting to save 37,000, and it's costing you 500,000 on the sale price. So mathematically, the answer is to pay taxes as you're getting close, especially as you're getting close to wanting to sell.
So let's say I want to sell my business in 3 years. I should start declaring my SUV. I mean, I think the average guy who's making 500,000 can easily put 100,000 stuff totally legally, totally legit to stuff that's sort of business stuff. His tax person's going to say, yeah, you can get by with that. It's okay because you use enough for the business. The shades of gray that are legal, right? So if I'm going to sell my business in 3 years, I'm better off just adding those back in and paying taxes on them and paying the 30,000 a year on taxes rather than that way if I sell my business in 3 years, I got 500,000 versus in 3 years I save what 180,000. Yeah,
Right.
whatever,
Yeah,
$90,000,
absolutely.
right?
And typically, a buyer is going to look back 3 years. And so that's what we typically see. So, too often, people call me and say, hey, I'm ready to sell my business. And I'll say, great, give me 3 years of tax returns. And this year, it is shiny. Everything looks perfect. This is a profitable business ready to go. And I looked the year before and they lost $100,000.
Right.
I looked the year before that and they lost another $100,000. So it makes it challenging to sell the story. So typically, if you have 3 years worth of clean books, it makes things substantially easier and helps you maximize the sale price of your business.
So now let's say, now I'm what I've noticed, and I've been in this business for God knows 40, 50 years, is that this is the first time since I've ever been in this industry that private equity is actually interested in businesses. In the past, they spend a bunch of money on other kinds of things like, whatever, healthcare, whatever. But now AI is disrupting all those industries. And so they're going, well, I got 100 million or 500 million. If I talked like I had 500 million, I don't want to put it in stuff that AI is going to have go away in 3 years or 4 years, right? So I got to put it into, I mean, AI is not going to do plumbing, it's not going to do electrical. And until we get robots, and where robots are way further down than just selling information, you've got all this private equity coming into this industry. I've never seen it before. And I always say they're going to either buy your business or put you out of business. It's probably a negative way to look at it. But, where there used to be 40 plumbing companies in town, 5 years from now, there's going to be five, right? I call it the Walmartization of the trade services,
Right.
right? Because they've got more capital, more money, and more smarts than the average guy. And they're going to do roll ups, and then you won't be able to compete because, like, the old downtowns can no longer compete with Walmart because they haven't got the resources, right? So if you look at it for better or worse, downtown in a lot of smaller towns has been abandoned because everybody goes shops in Walmart or the box stores. That's just what happened. I think that's going to happen in the service industry, where if you're going to go get your plumbing fixed, you won't have like 10 mom and pop shops. You'll have one that sort of owns a town, right? Is that
Well,
fair?
and we've seen a lot of that happen, right? I mean, there definitely is consolidation for various reasons, and it's been going on for a few years now. I think there's still opportunities for the mom and pops to compete. I think a lot of homeowners, using that as an example, in the heating and air or plumbing business, a lot of homeowners like to do business with somebody they know. They like to do
Right.
business with somebody who coaches their kid in little league and that kind of thing. So I think
Right.
there's still opportunities. Are they going to outspend them in marketing? Not a chance. Are they going to be able to be fancier? Probably not. But are they able to build and own successful businesses? I think that opportunity still exists.
Well, the
It's
good news
changed.
about AI that I see, Patrick, is that AI is allowed, like, I can provide a guy that's doing 2 million a year with the same HR services that a $20 million company has, right? Same thing with marketing. So what their AI is a leveler in a way, because a small guy can now afford the quality of services that the big companies have at a fraction of the cost. That I've noticed. So if
Absolutely.
they,
And that carries over, right, into other things. There's other opportunities for them to be able to compete. And I think it's differentiation. It's are you going to, once again, are you going to go run more ads in those? No, it's not mathematically going to be possible, but there are ways to compete. And I think those who are focusing on that are still doing well. And I think private equity as a whole are historically very good at raising capital and buying businesses, but their strong point is not running companies long
well,
term.
I've noticed, I mean, also private equity, for better or worse, sort of has a bad reputation, in my opinion, that they don't they don't care about anything but money. I thought it's true or not. I'm just saying, if you look at the, whatever the urban myths out there, for lack of a better term, private equity only cares about money, doesn't care about people, wants to come in and, get rid of all the employees they can, put everything in. So all that they don't really care about the end user. They just care about money. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I would say that is a myth that's out there. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think like anything else, right? There's good and bad people in the marketplace, right? Can you find a bad mechanic that rips people off? Well, sure you can. Can you find a good mechanic in the same market? Sure you can. So I think your statement is accurate. There are some that are only focused on bottom lines, and those historically are the ones that get the bigger press. But at the end of the day, they're often not designed to buy and hold. They're typically designed to buy, maximize value, and sell. And so I
Right.
think the long-term approach is not there, and that's where there's opportunities for a mom and pop to be able to compete and compete long-term against them.
Okay. So if I looking, I mean, I always think you should, build your company to sell, whether you're going to sell it or not.
Right, I agree.
It's just how to run a better business. So let's say I have a, remodeling company or HVAC company, whatever, and I want to sell, let's say in 3 to 5 years. When do I hire you? How do I prepare for it? What does that look like in actual things that I can implement?
Yeah, and so my advice, whether you want to sell 1 year, 5 years, 20 years from now, is to get a valuation done. And that's the first step in working with somebody like me. We do them for free, just because most people don't have a clue what their business is worth, right? It's typically their largest asset. They've typically never sold a business, don't have a clue what it's worth. So we have a lot of people, thankfully now, that we work with, and we do evaluation every year. So when the time is right, they have an understanding of what it's worth, or if somebody makes them an offer, they know if it's a good offer or not. So we're kind of planting the seed in the groundwork. Too often I meet with people, and when I give them the value, they're shocked. They're not happy. And I've had way too many conversations with 60 and 70-year-olds saying, hey, you've done it wrong, right? You should have
Well,
changed
now
this.
unfortunately, they go to ChatGPT and look at it a second view and maybe right or wrong. And they go, "This is my business. What is it worth?" And I'm sure ChatGPT will be happy to tell you. It's probably not right, but it'll certainly give you an answer, right?
It'll give you an answer, but it may not be a real answer. And
Right.
ChatGPT is not going to be the one to tell it. And so there's nobody to go back and talk to. Where we take a look at comps in the marketplace, what's happening today, and say, here's realistically what it's worth. And I think that's the first step. When it's time to actually sell, typically we like to see something 12 months out. That way we can get everything in order, make sure the books are clean, make sure everything's the way we want it to be. But the sooner you start doing it, the better. Because I agree with you. You should always be building a business to sell, just because if everybody wants to buy it, chances are it's worth more money. And it's not a drain on your life, right? Nobody wants
that. You probably don't want to sell it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yes, I look at that. I've helped a couple of build construction companies, and like I've got some guys doing 18 million. He works 15 hours a week. He takes home $1 million at least, and he lives like in Atlanta. The business is in Washington. Why would you sell it, right?
Absolutely, but at least you know. So if somebody does make an offer, you know where it's going to be. And it's got to be a lot of money because it's not a drain on your life. And so all those things add value, and knowing that at the onset is beneficial.
So now if you give a business valuation, do you keep working with them, or do you tell them to go see some coach or marketing company? How do you help them get from where they are to where they want to be?
So it really depends on what the issues are, right? If it's just lining the books, and we'll give them the things to focus on, right? Increase maintenance agreements, or better train your staff, or more online reviews. So that stuff we do. Now, we don't hold their hand and do that for them. We work with a lot of great coaching organizations that, depending on what it is, we may send them those coaches to get that done if they need to. We're going to tell them what's going to increase value. These are the 4 or 5 things that you should focus on now over the next 12 to 18 months to increase the value. But we're not the one that's going to hold their hand and do it.
But you have good people to refer them to that you trust. They'll help them get to where they want to go. Let's say I have a, I don't know, a $3 million roofing business or HVAC business. I want to sell it for an 8 times multiple. I'm really optimistic, right? So let's say I should be netting at least 10% worst case, right? So at 3 million, I'm netting 300,000. 10 times it'd be 3 million. And then go down from there. And I want to get at least a couple million business from it, because it doesn't make sense to sell it if I don't get at least, because I got to pay taxes on what I get paid, right?
Right.
And then they're going to make me stick around and pay taxes. So it has to be a lot to make that even worthwhile. So how do I meet with you, and then over the next 3 years, you'll tell me how and what I need to do so I can get my end number that I'm looking for. Is that true?
Yep, 100%. We'll tell you that when we do the valuation and say, here's what you need to focus on and why. Here's the things I'd switch. Here's what's going to get you over to that dollar figure you need. We do all that.
Okay, cool. So Patrick, if they made a hold of you, how do they do that? You said you do the first business evaluation for free, right?
Yep. Yeah, so they can go right to our website, businessmodificationgroup.com. I'm super active on LinkedIn and on Facebook, Patrick Lange, Lange. I have a YouTube channel that talks about buying and selling in the trades. Really reach out anywhere. They can give us a call directly. Happy to give my number, 850-669-2498. They could call us. They can email me. They can visit our site, whatever means is necessary. We'd love an opportunity to talk to them.
And also, it's important, I think, that you talk to somebody like Patrick, because there is some not good stories about people being underpaid by private equity because they're smarter than you are, for lack of a better term, right?
They're professional buyers, right? At the end of the day, they've bought hundreds of companies and you've sold none.
Professional buyer meets amateur seller. I guarantee the buyer will win.
Yeah, and emotions are involved on top of it, right? And they come to you and give you a dollar figure that could seem astronomical to you, but your business may be worth 3 times that, and you didn't know it, or they tell you.
Suggestion: you don't go straight to private equity. Get somebody like yourself to represent them, right?
Correct. And there's a lot of people like me who do a good job. So it's not just me; it's getting somebody in your corner.
Okay, great. Patrick, I appreciate your time. And whether you're going to sell your business or not, you should build it to sell it. You should have it evaluated. You just have a better business and a better asset. And the good news is you don't have to pay taxes on it until you sell it, right?
Sure.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.